Well, how about if we begin with the Sufi invocation? And let's say it in the way that Murshid gave it to us, Hazrat Inayat Khan. Towards the One, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. A spirit of guidance, very important words. And I'd like to begin just for a moment with, because those of you that have just come, I was kind of working behind the scenes because the link was wrong on the Sufi Message website, so I kind of had to do some fix up there. But at any rate, let's just take some breaths together. And I know that Pir Moinettine's been giving teachings on the breath, and he's been talking about the Aruj and the Nazul and the Jamal and the Jalal and the Kamal. And I would like for us to think about the breath in a circle, but in a horizontal plane today. So it's not necessarily Aruj or Nazul, or you can do that too if that's helpful. But what I'd like for you to do is to breathe into the heart. And if you could breathe out then into a form of a circle. And then we're going to breathe in. And we're going to breathe out. And imagine at the center of the circle is your heart, which is the Zat. It's the beginning, it's that divine spark. And that's in your heart. And as you breathe in, you're in contact with that spark. And as you breathe out, you widen the circle. You could even think of it that at the point at the center of the heart is like the tip of a compass. And with every breath, you draw a bigger and bigger circle, stretching outward to include all things that Yahweh see. But what is that center point? That center point is that beautiful soul that God has given to us and placed in this earthly vessel. So breathe in to the heart, which encompasses the soul, the physical heart. And then breathe out and draw a bigger circle. Circle. Our consciousness can be vast while we are also concentrated at this very special point that was the seed of God given to us at our birth. It's that part of God that can see itself through us, and we're enacting the divine play through each one of our lives, which is unique. So breathe in again to the Zat, that point, that divine spark, and breathe out. Amen. So today's class is titled Orientation of Consciousness and the Nature of Spirituality. That's a big title. It was like, I thought, should I dare give it such a big title? But it does relate to the meditation that we just did, and hopefully we'll go deeper into this. So first, of course, beginning with words of Murshid, and he says, before speaking, so he's speaking to his group, an audience, before speaking of spirituality, I must first explain what I mean by spirituality. He says, there are people who consider spirituality as orthodoxy or piety, to be religious, to be a priest, a monk, a hermit, to fast, to live in the forest, to live with extreme disciplines, to adopt a certain form of worship. And he says, a person may have all of these outer forms without being spiritual. And a spiritual person may have nothing of these and be spiritual. Those who seek spirituality in this outer form are mistaken. This is like something we add, a robe, a hat, fancy shoes, beads, whatever. That's not being spiritual. They may be signals to the outside world, but that's not being spiritual from within. Those who seek spirituality in these outer forms are mistaken, for it is more than that. Real spirituality is spirit consciousness, that point. If we can always keep kind of the compass on that point, no matter where we go, we're still in contact. To be spiritual, now he says it another way. He talks about spirit consciousness, and now he says to be spiritual means to be conscious of spirit, conscious of that spirit, that gift. Just as a material person may be conscious of material and matter of matter. So he says it's not religion, and it's not orthodoxy, and it's not outer forms or a certain kind of life, which means spiritual, although I will say some of those can be adopted along the way as a matter of discipline. Those are my words, not Murshid's. And they help us get to that place where he's guiding us. But he finally says, there's not any certain form of life or kind of life that means you're spiritual. But what he says, it is to be conscious of spirit that makes one spiritual. He's going to say it in another way in a bit. So let's just keep going deeper and deeper. There are others who think, this is fascinating, by the way. Let your ears perk up. There are others who think that those who perform phenomena, it's like a magician, miracles, who work wonders are spiritual. He says it is not so. Many are capable of performing phenomena, and they're not any different than a magician. So let's not be deluded by that. It's entertaining, but it's not spiritual. He says, then others say that to be spiritual means to tell fortunes, or to be clairvoyant, or to see wonderful things. You know, someone says, oh, I see in your aura such and such. Well, that's maybe a gift they have, but it's not necessarily spiritual. And it's not necessary to do these things or to see wonderful things in order to be spiritual. I'm remembering that Murshid also said that those things may occur as you progress along the path, but they're not it. They're not where you're going. And in fact, he does say that those things will become more subtle, not as dramatic. You know, at first you may see things, shapes, colors, auras, you know, you may hear voices, comes in different ways. You may smell things that are kind of clairaudient, clairvoyant, clair olfactory. But he says those do go away. It becomes much more subtle and you're just more aware. Those things get your attention in the beginning. It's not necessary to do or see wonderful things in order to be spiritual. I think it's just having a good heart, an open, loving heart. Don't you? Others imagine that to be spiritual means sitting in a cave of mountains or roaming about forests or appear and disappear, which I guess I've heard by a number of Pir Vilayat students. He was able to do that, bilocate. It's known that Baba Neem Karoli would do that too. He would appear. I personally had an experience. Baba Neem Karoli was deceased, and I had an experience in Rishikesh where he totally appeared, and I conveyed that to one of his disciples, and they asked me where that was. I mean, it was a very clear experience. There was light that came from that direction and caught my attention. I don't know, Gemma, you might have been with me at the time. I don't recall if you were there then. But I told this disciple of Neem Karoli Baba's about it, and he said, do you know that is land that we have acquired to build a small temple there, but it is not there. So it kind of confirmed that that was some sort of experience that kind of jumped out at me and grabbed my attention. And God bless Babaji. So there are things, these are all things, this seeing things, hearing things, you know, whatever, smelling things, roaming around in forests, going to caves. But these are just, they can be considered fancies, and they can be also, I always think sometimes, in the Buddhist community especially, I've heard people compare their practices and how many repetitions of something they've, acquired. And I always think, why are we doing that? Why should we compare? It's not like we're in the Brownies or the Girl Scouts or the Cub Scouts or the Eagle Scouts. We're not getting badges on a sash. It's an inner realization that hopefully we're going towards, inner understanding, a deepening from within. So here's the main crux of this, but we've got a lot more to go before the class is over. He says, and I have put this in bold in my notes, which will be available on the website, to be natural means to be oneself, and to be one's natural self. Now, let's see. I think maybe, Safiya and Gemma, you know you've heard Murshid Hidayat say this. He'd say, just be natural, right? You remember that, how he would say that. And I remember when I first met Murshida Aziza and Murshid Hidayat, they had come to our home for a visit because he was, there was a piece of his music being conducted in a nearby city, and we hosted them during that time. And I remember that was one of the first things he said. You know, I kind of can have a loud voice and I can project. And he said, I'm so glad that you can speak loudly and I can hear you. Because he was already using hearing aids, and really practically by the time he passed, he was almost profoundly deaf, but he got it somehow. But anyway, this was earlier on, a decade or more before his passing. And he said, you know, I think people think to be spiritual, they must speak in a very soft voice. He goes, what's the point? I can't hear them, you know. So being natural, being oneself. And although this has a lowercase s, maybe we could add a uppercase s, being oneself, not shying away from that spiritual gift that's been given to us, and to let it shine. And so Murshid asked this question, how many of us are ourself? If we were ourself, we would all be spiritual. And Gemma likes the quote by Murshid Hidayat. I might ask her to unmute and share that. What was the quote? You say it often that he repeated.
You don't have to be spiritual. You are spiritual.
Yes. And he'd do it with a really booming voice and gusto. So that's it, right? And that's the teaching here before us. And he said, we are not ourselves. We're far from it. And then he says, he's saying, you know, many people are far from it. And at times we know we all are. We know when we're off the target or off the mark, or the compass has kind of skipped out here, that point. So he says, and he's quoting the beautiful poetry by Rabindranath Tagore. And it says, apart from accomplishing things, to be a person is the most difficult thing. And it means that to be a human being is very difficult, just to be completely human and natural. We're born a human being, yet the first thing we ought to be is what we're not. We are anything but human. We're willing to be a solicitor or an advocate, or it's also an attorney. In India, they call it a solicitor. He said, we're willing to be a doctor. We're willing to be a professor. But to be a human being, that is the thing we think of last. And mostly we do not think of it at all. You okay over there, Jojo? Okay. So I want to do this practice. I don't know that anyone has, I don't recall doing this practice, let's say, and I know I've never been given this practice, but I've been working with it alongside this teaching, because Pir Vilayat always emphasized, don't give a practice that you haven't done yourself and you know the effect. And maybe Pir Moinudin can illuminate this even further for us, but I will do my best here to talk about this practice. And I'm going to, for a moment, copy this and put it in the chat. Give me a second. So if you open your chat window, you'll see the words. And this is to everyone. And it's Allah, A-L-L-A-H, and then a space, and then A-L, and then a space, apostrophe, I-L-A-H. So it's both kind of like Allah, but there's a change in it. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the sounds of the word even Allah. And this isn't new to us. Many of us understand this. And it is when we say the initial ah, and we can do this by putting our hands on our heart area, and just let's say that, the sound, ah, ah, ah. You can feel that vibration within the heart space. And this ah is like that breath that we did at the beginning. It's expansive, and it's like this sound is opening to the universe, into the infinite, the ever-widening. Ah. And often it's put this way. I know Pir Vilayat often would talk about the transcendent and the eminent. And I'll speak more about that perhaps after the practice. But this is this transcendent dimension. Ah, just reaching out. And it is beyond the material universe. It is into, maybe we could even say, the fabric of the entire universe is, this sound of ah. And then we have the two L's. And I love this because it can be described as both shimmering and tingling. And so when I think about that, I think about those two L's as being a little wand in the hand where you could hit the most beautiful, delicate bell that sends out this shimmering, and tingling sound from the heart. It's like we have these in our hands. Or, it's like when the Tibetan Buddhists pick up the bell and they ring it, it's always here at the heart. It's at the heart. Or the dinchas, the little round discs that are used in the Tibetan Buddhist ceremony. It's like that beautiful little delicate sound. I wish I had my tinctures out, but I don't. Okay. So it's this thrilling sound that is sometimes referred to as a shimmering being. Have you ever noticed that after zikr, everyone seems to be radiating so much light? Well, we've activated the atoms with light and sound. And then at the very end, we say an ah again. I mean, think about it. It's almost like a palindrome, backwards and forwards. The transcendent and the eminent, the transcendent and the eminent. And this is something that it's, Allah. And then this last ah should bring a sense of relaxation in the heart. Allah. And what's more important, or as important we could say, is that final H sound. We don't really always get to that. English speakers don't really understand that. how important the aspiration of the breath is. When I lived in the Middle East, I was living in a household with Arabs, and it happened that they were Christians, they were Greek Orthodox, but we had a lot of Muslim friends, and of course we were part of the culture. And you know how we are in USA, we have this idea of personal space, and we're not comfortable if people come, especially people we don't know, if they come close to us and speak to us. Well, I was told, don't step away from someone when they're close to you, speaking to you. It's an insult, because the truth is that at the end, Fatah, Allah, those sounds and the sharing, it's called sharing of the breath. So coming close to someone and feeling their breath and sharing the breath is important. I don't know Hawaiian, but people that live there sort of talk about it in the similar way, that the language is like that. So I think that this is, again, cultural, because this comes from, the Arabic language and the Aramaic language, and this breath part is so important. So this Allah leads us to who, but who isn't going to be part of this exercise. But it's important to think of that. The who is kind of that. At once I feel it as this transcendent part that is also eminent, comes down to be near us and surround us. So it's this amazing kind of ever-widening circle. Now, what about al dash apostrophe ILAH? Well, this means the individuated God. And al, or il, in Arabic is always the. So it means the God. And we could refer to that as that point, that seed within our soul. And it's this aspect of God that is eminent, that has come into material reality to be experienced through this life, okay? And it's that part of God that is present in all of creation and within each individual manifestation of God. Is that clear? You kind of got it? Oh, thank you. I hope so. But maybe you'll get it as we do the practice. So a little bit more about Illah. Again, it reveals individuation, and this is so important. Individuation, sometimes we want to merge. Oh, we love something, we want to merge. But keeping the individuation is an important aspect of divinity, because it means that we can realize we become integrated into our own sense of self, which is about this. This is what this class is about, okay? And the divine manifestation, this is so important. I should bold this. I will before I post it. To know it is a divine manifestation, not separate from the real self. It is the real self. It's both. It's this big Allah. Allah. You want to do the practice together a little bit? Okay, let me take a sip of water first. You can dry mouth. Today's Sunday. I'm going to divert your attention for just a moment, then we'll bring it back again. But I have a yellow glass, yellow in my dress. Sometimes I wear a big yellow headband. It's Sunday, so the color is yellow. If anyone's interested, write to me. My friend Sri Kurunamayima, oh my God, it had to have been in 1990. She gave me the instructions. Try to dress every day in coordination with the astrological influence of the day. So tomorrow's moon day, and you would dress in pale blues, grays, whites. Every day has that influence. It's part of the Vedic system, and If you want to know more about it, write me. I'll send you a little list. Okay. So again, we get back to this beautiful sense of Allah. Allah. Let's just say Allah together, and then we'll bring in the Al-Ilah. Allah. Allah. And you can say it in different ways, like Allah, Allah, Allah. Just, you could bring your emotions into it if you wish. Allah, Allah, Allah. And then we're going to say Allah, Al-Ilah. 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 Get it? It's again that kind of expansion and contraction. The transcendent or the infinite, and the eminent and the finite. That's what we're doing, this divine dance. Any questions? Any questions? I'm a good teacher, no questions. Okay. Let's do a few.
Could I just ask one little question?
Of
Does it
course.
matter? Does it matter if you, and probably you've just told us it does, so I need to sink it in my head, in or out for Allah?
Allah. You know, I'd always take a breath in before I say it, so it's kind of coming to that zot, that dot, my own soul essence, you know, that's there, but then it expands out into the infinite. So Allah, Al-Ilah. I kind of do it on one breath. I know that Murshid Hidayat always emphasized when you did the zikr to kind of try to do the whole phrase on one breath. Different people do it different ways, but that's also a good practice. It expands our breath. I think I told you also at one point I had an experience of Kundalini, which was quite radical, and it created I would tremble and shake, and especially during spiritual practices. And so I called a lot of people I really respect, and I asked them any advice for that. No one said. They just kept referring me to other people. It's okay. It's not everyone's had the experience, and since other people know I've had something, they send people to me to help them with it. So it's okay. It's part of the circle. But Pir Murshid Hidayat Inayat Khan, I mean, I thought, I'm going to test his realization. I'm going to ask him what I should do. And he said, well, it's very logical. You're just like a pressure cooker, and you need to release that pressure. It's just making you shake like a pot would. And he said, do the stretch breath. Again, if you want to know about the stretch breath, write me. Savitri, that might be good for you, by the way. It just came to me very strongly to tell you that. If you need instructions, you call me. It really did the trick. And when it starts to happen, I can do that breath. He also said, use the zikr of Inayat Khan just on the breath. It's called the gentle singing zikr. And he said, let that vibration circulate within your entire system, and it will kind of release that pressure. Okay, so let's say, thank you for asking the question, Habiba Noor. Anyone else? Any comments? Let's do it a few more times. Allah, Al-Ilah, Allah, Al-Ilah. Illah. Allah. Al-Illah. Allah. Al-Illah. Allah. Al-Illah. Allah. Al-Illah. So we've heard this metaphor used by Murshid often, but I'm going to say it again. Sorry? Was that Kelsey or you?
I didn't hear
Oh, it's clairaudience. It's like, It's coming back as a vibration, as an echo. Okay. Hazrat Inayat Khan, and Joe is sitting, this is a mirror behind me, so people ask, why are you making your husband sit behind you? I'm not. He's sitting in front of me. He's over there. It appears that he's behind. So Hazrat Inayat Khan expresses this idea in his teachings, and this is found in Metaphysics, and he describes it in this way. This life is like a drop of water in the sea. The drop is existent, and yet in reality, it's non-existent compared with the sea. So think of that. We are that drop, or that al-illah. Al-Illah, we're the drop. But then we become the Allah. So the drop is existent, and yet in reality non-existent when compared with the sea. And yet we cannot say that the drop of water is non-existent. It is there, yeah? For it merges into the same sea from which it once appeared. Okay, here's our birth, our life, and our death. The birth is the drop, or the ray, and when we take our last breath, we merge back into that. And it merges back into the sea from which it appeared. Think about that. That's such a beautiful thing to think about. And we don't long for that, but we shouldn't, well, I'm not going to say you should or shouldn't, but there's nothing to be afraid of. It's just that merging, re-merging, reconnecting. And it's nothing takes away from the source of the drop or the original being. It's both. It's this undulation. It's the dot in the circle, the dot in the circle, the dot in the circle. That's a good meditation to use too. I understand Murshid Samuel Lewis gave it to all of his students, the dot and the circle, as a visual concentration to study and to see what, using the breath, I think he gave the Darood toward the one united with all, and it can be worked with in different ways. So toward the one could be the dot united with all, or it could be united with all, toward the one united with all, or toward the one united with all. You see, it can go both ways. This is a lot of esoteric knowledge in that, what seems to be a simple practice. Okay. People say that nowadays there's a tendency in the world, now this is probably from the 1920s, not this 20s, 100 years ago. And you know from history that this is true, what he's about to say. People say that nowadays there's a great tendency in the world to discover spiritual truth, that there's an inner spiritual awakening. Well, how many times have we been through that? In my lifetime, a lot. There's like, let's all join together and create this, harmonic convergence and da-da-da-da. Raise your consciousness. Let's do it all at the same time. I think there's value in that, but it's ongoing. It wasn't just 100 years ago. Murshid says, yes, I admit it, but what direction does it take? He's being a little questioning, cynical maybe. Very often it takes the wrong direction. And now he's going to explain why. And this is very important. And then I have some commentary. How am I doing on time? Okay. Those searching after truth often think that the best way to find belief in spirit and in the hereafter is mediumship. So you remember that, on all the Sherlock Holmes, who was it? Was his name Conan Doyle? What was his name? The person that wrote, huh? Arthur Conan Doyle. Okay, you know, he was part of that. I mean, he was going to those. He was very interested in mediumship, and they were having seances and asking questions of the dead and for signs. And he says that there are some people that wish to become medium themselves, or to go to a medium, and when they have found proof of communicating with the dead, you know, then they believe in something. They think that's spiritual. Then they think they found proof of the spiritual. And what does he say happens? Think about it. This is so important. And then I want to stop and talk about our spiritual practice. He says, they wreck their nervous system. Many go out of balance. In this manner, the way that would lead to spirituality actually leads to destruction. So I also have seen this, and I'm just going to be very honest about it. Not in our circle, not in Moinadine's circle, and I'm not saying it's in any circle, but I've been witness to it, that people become very motivated by elevated levels of initiation. And then what do I see? And they get them before they're ready. And then what I see is they get sick, they get loopy, they can't function, they get angry. You know, it's like all this stuff, the dross comes up too quickly. It's a very gentle massaging of our being with our practices. So some of you know, and you know, I try to be really open about it, going this way and that way and seeking other spiritual paths. But I have seen it. I know it exists. When you mix too many medicines together, it can lead to illness, not mental illness and physical illness, and a kind of destruction in one's own life. So I'm wanting to be very strong about this because there's no need to cling in our circle to past practices. You have to trust that those are resonating in your being. Sometimes we cycle back through them. And I really want to caution people, because we have a lot of great books out with all the names of God, and then you read it and it's like, well, I want to do that one. But truly, it's so very dangerous. I can't emphasize it enough. I don't want to scare you, but I want to scare you. So it's just like, you know, I had a dear friend, some of you met him, Jigme, and he was Thupten Jigme. He was the chant master for the Nechung Monastery. And Nechung is the seat of the state oracle. And so he would always travel with the state oracle, and he would do chants for the Dalai Lama. I mean, he was such a humble being, and so spiritual, because he was natural. He was always so uplifting and had the most wonderful laugh. But he felt compelled to sometimes go and help when there were earthquakes or some sort of flooding. And so he had done that in India, and he had contracted something. I don't know if it was amoebic in nature, but even when he came to visit us, we had to take him to the doctor for it. Well, then there was the earthquake in Nepal, and he wanted to go help. And he got something else, or he got sicker, and they brought him back to India, sent him to the hospital in Dehradun, and started giving him, I don't know if it was antibiotics or what, but what happened? The next thing I know, I'm getting a phone call from India in the middle of the night, and they are crying. The monks are crying. Jigme Lhasa died. He's dead. How? He went to the hospital, and he was taking one medicine, and they gave him another one. It was reaction. It was finished. Okay, do you want to do that with your spiritual practices? No, right? So we want to be careful. These are medicines. They're powerful medicines with powerful energies. Is everyone leaving? No, I don't want to hear this. Okay. I hope you can understand that my impulse is most caring and tender towards everyone here and anyone that should listen to this in the future. Very, very important. And I know my own Rinpoche, His Eminence Kamto Rinpoche. I remember he had Western students, and they came from various religious traditions, and he was very clear about it. Do not, if you're going to be on this path of Buddhism, you do this. You don't mix other things. Now, I'm kind of all-inclusive. And so for me, he allowed me, just like Pir Vilayat allowed me certain things. It just happened. But I always got permission from my teachers. I didn't just do it all. You know, I'm raised Catholic. I have affinity for the prayers. I do those. I kind of start with those in the morning, and then I go do my Buddhist, you know, my dedication of merit and so forth, and my I'm losing the names, doesn't matter. And then I go into my Sufi practices, and that's kind of what I've always done. And I asked Rinpoche about it. He said, it's okay. But I said, why would you tell someone not to do that? And he said, because it makes them crazy. It's not just me saying it, some real pretty wise beings saying it. So I trust them. I trust them implicitly. All right. Now here's another way. He said there are others who wish to pursue the spiritual in the same way a person does at a university or college. They want to read all things in a book, and they think, if there's anything like spiritual attainment, these books will teach me that. But among them are many who think that the best way is an intellectual way, like you can think your way to spirit. But there's part of that too. I mean, we really have to have both our intellect and our intellect, our wisdom mind is what I would say, our wisdom mind, and then this intuitive mind about it too. And he said, Murshid says, if there's anything like spiritual attainment, one book will not tell us that. It's our experience, our practice does. That's my words, not Murshid's. He says, among them, there are many who think that the best way is the intellectual way. Again, like at university. But what is intellectual? Is reading really intellectual? Are all books the same, he says. Many times one book and then the other confuse someone. So he said, often people come to me and tell me, in order to help me, to have confidence in them, that they've been reading these books and even my books, he says, for 10 years or more. And instead of having confidence in them, I have to guide them on the path and to erase what they've learned first. You see, isn't it so subtle? Those of you that have read the message volumes and really study them, even within them, Murshid says this one thing and then he says another thing. And you know, that's what Pir Vilayat would say, reconciling those things that appear to be irreconcilable. And so it's a level of understanding by continually studying, and that's the part that gets to look deeper and deeper into the teachings. When they even present what appears to be conflictual information, I mean, my God, just go to the Hazrat Inayat Khan.org and look up the purpose of life. Okay, Murshid will say, the purpose of life is, and then fill in the blank, because there's a lot of different things that he says about the purpose of life. Well, those are all true, but we also have to think he was giving lectures, and who were the audiences that he was giving them to? The purpose of life is mastery. The purpose of life is love. The purpose of life is compassion, helping others. It's all in there, but he was also talking to different groups of people. He was specific how he was guiding people or lecturing to people. And then he says, perhaps there are some people that are not willing to erase. They just think they're right. That's okay. No harm done. But they can't learn. It's like a cup that's full and it's not overflowing in a good way. Okay. And they think that they've gained this knowledge by reading 100 books. And again, he says, what knowledge? Is it spiritual? Yeah. The way of spirituality, and probably he says this in a number of different ways, so you could look those words up. The way of spirituality. The way of spirituality in the context of this teaching is the expansion and the widening of the heart. We've done that with the breath. We've done that with our spoken practice. Okay? And why do we want to do that? in order to accommodate the divine truth. The heart must be expanded. Must be expanded. I don't think Murshid says it this way, but I think our Buddhist teachers have. It's some people say, well, is it this or is it that? And they would say, well, it's this and that. Inclusive. The truth is very large. It's very encompassing. With the expansion of the heart, divine bliss is poured out. I think that's what it also means to be spiritual, that we radiate a kind of atmosphere through our glance, through our voice, through our smile, and through our eyes. Murshid Samuel Lewis said, you'll know them by the light in their eyes. There's something very awake. It's almost like, a divine secret's residing within, and for people that want to have it shared with them, then a Sufi would always be willing to do so. So he says, Murshid says, the true spirituality is the raising of the consciousness to that plane, which is the abode of the divine being, but then always remembering that divine being is also here. That seed. So, checking my time, and I think maybe let's close. Let's first do that kind of expansion and contraction breath that we did at first, like that sense of the finite in the infinite, or maybe that image I like, but you don't have to use it, just of the compass just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, drawing it, but keeping the point in this equipoise in the soul consciousness, the consciousness of spirit. So let's do that. So we breathe in and out, expanding the heart, and in and out. In and out. Continue for a few more. And on the out, we say Allah. And then we breathe in, or we think of this contraction at this point of equipoise, the divine seed. So we'll first say Allah, Al-Ilah, Allah, Al-Ilah, Allah, Al-Ilah, Allah, Al-Ilah, Allah, Al-Ilah, Allah, Al-Ilah. If there's any good that has come of our meeting together, may it spread with the ever-widening circle, giving comfort, love, compassion, understanding, support, food, a place to rest, a place to feel safe for all beings. We dedicate this. And we can close, if you will, with the Khatum. O thou who art the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the Lord of heaven and earth, open our hearts that we may hear thy voice, which constantly cometh from within. Disclose to us thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us thy great goodness. Teach us thy loving forgiveness. Raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide men and women and us, and unite us all in thy perfect being. Amen. If you'd like to be on our mailing list, you can write me or go to Sufi-message.org. There's a way to join the list there. And that's it.